My name is Emma Anderson and I live in Chicago, Illinois with my husband, James. In everyone's eyes, we have a perfect life. James is a successful executive at a large company and I am a dedicated housewife. But the reality behind closed doors is very different. James humiliates me daily, criticizing everything I do. He says I'm useless, that I'm not good enough. Your words are like sharp blades, cutting into my self-esteem. On the surface, our lives seem like a modern fairy tale. We have a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood and attend social events that are the envy of many. People see us as the ideal couple, always well-dressed and smiling. However, these appearances hide a dark truth that unfolds far from prying eyes. Within the walls of our home, I live a reality marked by silent pain and suffering. James is charismatic and charming in public, but he turns into a ruthless tyrant when we're alone. Each morning, I wake up with a knot in my stomach, anticipating the criticism and humiliation to come. James finds fault with everything I do, from the way I make breakfast to the way I clean the house. His words are calculated to wound, undermining any confidence I may have in my abilities. He constantly reminds me that I'm a disappointment, someone he puts up with only out of obligation. I feel like a prisoner in my own home, with no hope of redemption. To cope with the pain and anxiety this constant abuse causes, I started taking medication. At first, they were just to control occasional anxiety attacks, but over time, they became a daily necessity. The feeling of suffocation that accompanies me is temporarily relieved by the pills, but the peace they offer is fleeting. Each dose is a reminder of my weakness, proof that I cannot face reality without chemical assistance. My days became a vicious cycle of insults and humiliations, followed by doses of medication to calm my nerves. The routine is exhausting and demoralizing, leaving me increasingly isolated and helpless. The walls of the house that were supposed to be a refuge of love and security became an emotional prison. I feel trapped, with no way out, unable to envision a future free from this torment. Every pill I take is a reminder of my fragility, a reflection of how dependent I have become on something external to deal with my reality. The emotional pain James inflicts has turned me into a shadow of my former self. The need for refuge, even if temporary, is overwhelming. The hope of one day escaping this spiral of emotional abuse seems distant, but I still harbor a small thread of hope, a spark that one day I might find the strength to break free. Routine abuse became part of my life. Every morning, James wakes up with a charming smile, but as soon as we are alone, the insults begin. He belittles me for whatever reason, whether it's the coffee I made or the clothes I'm wearing. His words hit me hard, undermining any confidence I might have had. At the company, James is seen as a charismatic and dedicated leader. Nobody imagines that the man respected and admired by my coworkers is the same man who destroys me emotionally at home. I try to keep up appearances, smiling at social gatherings and pretending everything is fine. But inside, I'm in shambles, counting the minutes until he leaves the house and I can hide in my room, alone with my thoughts and my pills. Mornings are especially difficult. As soon as the alarm goes off, I feel a wave of anxiety wash over my body. James goes down to the kitchen, where I'm already preparing breakfast, my hands shaking slightly. He enters with his usual smile, but the tension in the air is palpable. Any slip, any detail that isn't perfect, and he starts to spout his cutting criticisms. "Is that the best you can do?" he asks, his voice thick with contempt. Every word is a dagger, every look, a judgment. In the workplace, James is the embodiment of success. He leads meetings with confidence, his ideas are always well received, and his subordinates see him as a mentor. It's difficult for me to reconcile this public image with the cruel man I know at home. Sometimes, when I watch a presentation from you or hear a compliment from a colleague, I feel a silent anger well up inside me. How can he be so different in public and in private? How come no one else sees the monster he really is? At social events, our role as the perfect couple continues. James and I exchanged fake smiles and shallow conversations with friends and acquaintances. I laugh at the jokes he makes, even though inside I feel more and more destroyed. Sometimes I catch myself looking at other couples, wondering if they too are living in a farce or if they really are happy. Envy and sadness consume me, but I maintain the facade, fearing that any crack will reveal the devastating truth of our lives. When we are finally back home, the mask falls off. James wastes no time in recalling every little mistake I made during the day. His words are a constant echo in my mind, even when he's not around. In the quiet moments, when I'm alone in the room, the pain becomes unbearable. It's at these times that pills become my only relief. Every pill I swallow is a desperate attempt to numb the pain, to forget, even if for a short time, the emotional torture I experience daily. The cycle of emotional abuse seems never-ending. Each day is a repeat of the previous one, with no hope of change in sight. I try to find strength in small moments of loneliness, but the truth is that I am drowning. The need to keep up appearances, to pretend that everything is fine, is slowly destroying me. The vicious circle of abuse and chemical dependency imprisons me, and with each passing day, I feel the hope of a better future fading a little more. One day, while sorting through James's papers, I found an unexpected piece of mail. It was a love letter, written by the branch manager, Sarah. My fingers trembled as I read the words of affection and passion exchanged between the two. The reality of the betrayal hit me like a blow, leaving me even more devastated. The letter was hidden among work documents, but the pink, scented paper made it stand out. I started reading it, hesitantly, thinking it might be something trivial. Yet the words revealed an intimacy and affection that I hadn't seen in years. My dear James, I can't wait for us to be together again. With each line, my heart sank deeper. The detailed descriptions of secret encounters and promises of eternal love were like knives, each deeper than the next. Feeling a mixture of disbelief and despair, I sat on the floor, holding the letter as if it were a contaminated object. My mind swirled with questions and scenarios, trying to understand how I could have been so blind. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The frequent business trips, the out-of-hours phone calls, the growing emotional distance. The reality that my husband not only humiliated me but also cheated on me was unbearable. When confronting James about the letter, I summoned all the courage I could find. I showed him the paper, my hands still shaking, and asked, trying to keep my voice steady, "What is this, James?" He didn't deny it. On the contrary, he laughed in my face, calling me a fool for not realizing it sooner. "Did you really think I'd be alone with you?" he mocked, his voice filled with contempt. The words echoed around the room, each laugh adding to my sense of humiliation. The pain of betrayal mixed with humiliation, and I felt my sanity slowly slipping away. Seeing the indifference and mockery in James' eyes was the final straw. Every past insult, every criticism and slight came together in a whirlwind of emotions that almost suffocated me. Public humiliation was one thing, but private betrayal, from someone I had shared my life with, was unbearable. Finally, something inside me broke. I looked at him, tears of anger and pain running down my face, and decided I couldn't live like that anymore. The decision was not easy, but it was inevitable. I realized that my survival depended on breaking free from that vicious cycle of abuse and betrayal. Betrayal was the final push that made me see that I deserved more than a life of pain and subjugation. Destroyed but determined, I began planning my escape from that emotional prison. For weeks I thought about how I could fight back. The anger and pain I felt needed to be channeled somehow. Finally, an idea emerged. I couldn't continue to be the silent victim. I decided that I would expose James and his mistress to everyone, especially in the company where he was so revered. It was a risky decision, but I was willing to pay the price. Each night, while James slept, I sat in the dark room, meticulously planning my next steps. I knew I couldn't act on impulse. It needed to be strategic. The idea of unmasking him in front of his colleagues gave me a sense of justice that I hadn't felt in a long time. I would make everyone see the real James, the cruel, traitorous man he hid behind his impeccable facade. I started planning meticulously. I knew I needed proof, so I started monitoring James and Sarah's movements. I managed to record conversations, take photos, and gather compromising emails. Every piece of evidence I got gave me more strength and determination to move forward with my plan. It was an arduous task, requiring patience and coolness, but the anger that consumed me was powerful fuel. I bought simple spy equipment, a voice recorder, a discreet camera, and email tracking software. I installed everything carefully, making sure James didn't suspect anything. I spent sleepless nights, waiting for the right moment to capture each suspicious interaction. The tension was unbearable, but each new piece of evidence I obtained gave me a little more hope that I could finally turn the tide in my favor. The evidence began to pile up. Photos of them together in discreet places, whispered conversations on the phone, emails exchanged at inappropriate times. Every detail built a solid case against James. I knew that when the time came, I would need to be ruthless. The company where he worked had a strict code of conduct, and a revelation of this magnitude could destroy his career. I was willing to risk everything to see him pay for what he did to me. Finally, the day arrived. I prepared a dossier with all the evidence and scheduled a meeting with the company's CEO. My heart was beating out of control, but I was determined. I delivered the material with firm hands, exposing the naked truth about James and Sarah. Seeing the expressions of shock and disbelief on the executives' faces, I felt a pang of satisfaction. I had waited for this moment, and now, the power was in my hands. I was no longer a silent victim. I was the woman who had decided to fight and claim her life. The day has come. James was organizing an important meeting at the company, attended by all directors and managers. I knew this would be the perfect opportunity to expose the truth. Dressed elegantly and confidently, I entered the meeting room, feeling all eyes turned to me. James, surprised, tried to push me away, but I was determined to speak. With my heart racing but my voice firm, I began to tell him about the abuse I suffered at home, describing in detail the daily humiliations he inflicted on me. For years, I lived under James's oppressive control. I began, my voice shaking slightly at first but gaining strength with each word. The faces of those present reflected shock and disbelief as I unveiled James' meticulously constructed facade. He belittled me daily, undermining my self-esteem and leaving me at the mercy of his cruel whims. As I spoke, I could see the transformation in the expressions of the directors and managers. The respect and admiration I felt for James was crumbling before my eyes. His verbal attacks were constant, I continued, looking directly at James, who was flushed with anger and embarrassment. He made me feel useless and worthless. His every word was a knife that cut deep, and I was left to bleed emotionally. But the final blow came when I revealed James' affair with Sarah. And as if the abuse wasn't enough, I said, my voice rising with a mix of pain and determination, he cheated on me with Sarah, the branch manager. With a decisive gesture, I projected the photos and emails onto the screen, exposing the truth for everyone to see. The room was completely silent, except for the murmurs of surprise and indignation that began to emerge. James tried to interrupt, standing up and shouting in a desperate tone, but it was too late. "That's ridiculous. Don't believe her," he shouted. But his words sounded hollow in the face of the incontrovertible evidence I had presented. The seed of doubt and contempt had been planted, and the incredulous and condemning looks from James's colleagues said it all. As I finished speaking, one of the directors stood up and, in a serious tone, said, "James, we need to discuss this immediately. Emma, thank you for bringing this to our attention." The authority in his voice indicated that action would be taken. I felt immense relief, mixed with deep sadness at what I had revealed. However, I knew I had done the right thing. I left the room, leaving James to face the consequences of his actions, with the feeling that justice was finally being served. The meeting room was completely silent after my revelation. The directors and managers looked at James with different eyes, full of distrust and disappointment. Sarah, pale, tried to justify herself, but her words were empty in the face of irrefutable evidence. James, furious, tried to maintain his composure, but I could see he was shaken. The tension in the room was palpable. Some directors began to mutter among themselves, while others stared at James, waiting for an explanation that would never come. The silence was broken by the CEO, who, with a serious and disappointed tone, asked James and Sarah to leave the room so they could discuss the next actions to be taken. James left, his heavy steps reflecting his anger and frustration. Sarah followed, still trying to explain the unexplainable. The news quickly spread throughout the company. Within hours, everyone knew about the scandal. Colleagues who once admired him began to avoid him, giving him dirty looks and whispering behind his back. Their trust in James as a leader and mentor was irreparably shaken. Each new look of disdain was a blow to his pride, and with every minute he felt his reputation crumbling. James' reaction was a mixture of anger and despair. He tried to maintain the facade of a controlled man, but it was clear he was losing control. The meetings he once commanded with authority became a minefield of unresolved tensions. Every decision he made was questioned. His every word was met with skepticism. The pressure was immense, and James knew that I had been responsible for triggering this avalanche. Despite the grim satisfaction I felt at seeing James get a taste of his own medicine, I knew the consequences for me would be severe as well. The decision to expose the truth put me in a vulnerable position. He knew he could face reprisals, both legal and social. However, the feeling of having finally broken the cycle of abuse and having claimed my dignity gave me the strength to face any adversity. The company has launched a formal investigation. The evidence I presented was sufficient for a thorough audit to be conducted. James and Sarah were temporarily relieved of their duties while the investigation was ongoing. I knew this was just the beginning of a long battle, but I was prepared to fight. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some control over my life. As I walked through the company corridors, I noticed looks of sympathy and support from some colleagues. Some came up to me, offering words of encouragement and expressing their surprise and disgust at the situation. The solidarity I began to receive gave me even more courage to face what was to come. I knew I had done the right thing, and I was determined to move forward, with my head held high, facing the consequences with the same determination that led me to expose the truth. As expected, James didn't accept my humiliation passively. He hired lawyers and started a defamation lawsuit against me, trying to recover his tarnished image. I also sought legal help, determined to prove the veracity of my accusations. The legal battle was arduous and exhausting, but each hearing was a chance to reaffirm my truth. In the first days of the process, the tension was unbearable. Each courtroom encounter was psychological warfare, with lawyers on both sides presenting arguments and counterarguments. James maintained his confident expression, but I saw the insecurity in his eyes. My lawyer, an experienced and empathetic professional, patiently guided me, helping me gather more evidence and prepare my statements. During the process, more people began to speak out, confirming my account of abuse. Former employees and colleagues of James brought to light stories of abusive behavior and improprieties he had committed over the years. Each testimony was a new piece in the puzzle that revealed James' true character. With each report, my confidence grew, and the collective strength of the voices that rose alongside me gave me hope. The hearings became intensely emotional events. Painful memories were relived as I detailed years of abuse and betrayal. James' defense tried to discredit every word, but the truth was stronger. Each piece of evidence presented, each testimony, eroded the mask of respect and success he had built. Seeing the frustration and anger on his face gave me a sense of justice being served. The tide was turning in my favor, and James' public image continued to deteriorate. The press began to cover the case, and public opinion turned against him. The revelations shocked many people who had previously admired him, and social media was abuzz with debates about domestic abuse and the courage to stand up against it. Each new headline was a small victory in the fight for the truth. I knew there was still a long way to go, but I was prepared to fight until the end. The legal battle was exhausting, both emotionally and physically, but the prospect of justice kept me going. I was no longer alone. I had the support of my legal team, new allies, and a growing network of people who believed in me. The truth was finally being heard, and I was determined to see it through, not just for myself, but for all the victims who never had the chance to speak. As the legal battle unfolded, I began to feel a new sense of freedom and power. The invisible chains that bound me were breaking, one by one. The fight for justice turned into a journey of self-discovery and recovery. I knew that, regardless of the end result, I had achieved something invaluable. my voice, and my dignity. The public exposure of the case brought a lot of attention to my situation. Support groups for victims of domestic violence reached out to me, offering emotional and legal support. Women who had gone through similar experiences began sharing their stories with me, creating a network of solidarity and strength. I felt less alone and more empowered every day. The support of these organizations was essential. I received psychological counseling and legal guidance, which helped me better deal with the stress and anxiety of the legal battle. Weekly meetings with other abuse survivors became a refuge, a place where I could express my emotions without fear of judgment. Each story shared was a reminder that I was not alone in this fight, and the resilience of other women inspired me to keep going. My story also caught media attention. I was invited to television shows and interviews, where I was able to talk about my struggle and inspire other women to stand up against abuse. Initially, being on camera and sharing intimate details of my life was intimidating, but I soon realized the transformative power of these appearances. Each interview was an opportunity to reach more people, raise awareness about domestic violence, and encourage other victims to seek help. With each appearance, I felt that my voice became stronger and that my message reached more people. The positive feedback from the public and growing support gave me a new perspective on life. Instead of being defined by pain and suffering, I was now seen as a survivor and an advocate for women's rights. Transforming my pain into a greater cause gave me renewed purpose. In addition to the interviews, I started participating in lectures and seminars on domestic violence. Sharing the stage with activists and experts allowed me to learn more about the issue and contribute meaningfully to the public debate. The events became a platform to advocate for political and social changes that would better protect victims. Seeing the positive influence my voice could have filled me with a sense of accomplishment and hope. Finally, I was turning my pain into something positive and powerful. The relationships I built along this journey formed an invaluable support network, a community united in the fight against abuse. I felt strengthened and ready to face any challenge that came my way. The battle wasn't over yet, but with the support network by my side and growing public awareness, I knew the future held more victories. My journey of suffering and overcoming was becoming a beacon of hope for many, and it gave me a reason to keep fighting. Along this journey, I began to rediscover myself. The broken, insecure woman I once was transforming into someone confident and resilient. I started taking more care of myself, both physically and emotionally. Therapy helped me deal with past trauma and build a healthier future. Each therapy session was an opportunity to confront my fears and insecurities. I learned to recognize the signs of trauma and develop strategies to deal with them. Little by little, the dark days began to be replaced by moments of clarity and self-understanding. Therapy not only helped me heal the wounds of my past, but it also gave me the tools to prevent those wounds from defining my future. In addition to taking care of my mental health, I started investing in my physical well-being. I adopted an exercise routine that not only helped me get back into shape, but also acted as an outlet for accumulated stress. Regularly practicing yoga and meditation has become a vital part of my day, providing an internal balance that I have never experienced before. With each deep breath and each stretch, I felt more connected to myself and more capable of facing the challenges that arose. I also decided to go back to school. I signed up for an administration and marketing course, determined to restart my career. The first class was intimidating, but I soon rediscovered my love for learning. The classes gave me a new routine and a renewed purpose. I met incredible people who became friends and mentors, helping me to believe in my abilities again. Each new achievement, no matter how small, was a personal victory that he celebrated with enthusiasm. As time went by, I began to explore new professional opportunities. Interning at a digital marketing company allowed me to apply what I was learning and develop new skills. I felt refreshed and ready to embrace the opportunities that life offered me. Each project completed, each client satisfied, was a reaffirmation of my value and potential. The strength I discovered within myself was something I never thought I possessed, and I was determined to keep growing. Personal transformation was an ongoing process of self-discovery and empowerment. The woman who emerged from this journey was someone I deeply admired, resilient, confident, and determined. Looking back, I saw how far I had come from the dark days of abuse and despair. I was ready to write a new chapter of my life, one that was defined by strength and courage rather than fear and submission. I was determined to continue growing, embracing each new opportunity with the certainty that I was capable of overcoming any obstacle. In time, the legal case came to an end. James was fired from the company and his reputation was ruined. I, on the other hand, left feeling stronger and with a new sense of purpose. With the help of my new friends and supporters, I was able to open my own marketing consultancy focused on helping small, women-led businesses. The creation of the consultancy was a milestone in my recovery journey. With each client I served, I felt more confident and fulfilled. My goal was clear: to use my skills and experiences to empower other women to achieve success. The consultancy soon gained notoriety for its commitment to female empowerment, and the community support was overwhelming. Small businesses flourished under my guidance, and each success was a shared victory. My life has changed in ways I never imagined possible. The woman who once felt trapped and powerless was now a respected leader, guiding others to find their path. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, and I was ready to face them all. The support networks I built over time continued to be a source of strength and inspiration. The stories of other women who overcame abuse and found their voice motivated me to continue my mission. The journey was long and difficult, but every step was worth it. Looking back, I saw how each experience, no matter how painful, had shaped the strong, resilient person I had become. The emotional scars were a reminder of what I had overcome and what I was capable of achieving. My personal transformation was reflected in all aspects of my life, from personal relationships to professional successes. Now, I look to the future with hope and determination, knowing that I am capable of overcoming any challenge that life throws at me. The freedom and autonomy I gained were precious, and I was determined to protect them at all costs. Every decision I made was guided by the desire to maintain my integrity and continue to grow as a person and professional. And most of all, I know that I will never again allow anyone to treat me the way James treated me. The experience taught me to recognize the signs of abuse and to value my dignity above all else. I was determined to live a life full of purpose and joy, surrounded by people who respected and supported who I was. My story was not just about survival, but about flourishing after adversity, finding a new beginning in the midst of chaos and pain. This new chapter in my life was not just a conclusion, but the beginning of a new adventure. I was ready to write my own story, one page at a time, with the knowledge that no matter what the future brought, I was prepared to face it with courage and determination. The pain of the past had turned into an inexhaustible source of strength, and with that, she was ready to conquer the world.